Assalamu alaikum. So this is the explanation for the different questions on the first exam. This is chapter 13 of the Everglades exam. All right. So it says, which of the following uses the words flora and or fauna correctly? All right. So what does flora mean? Right. So flora means, you can think of it flora as in flowers. All right. So flora, flowers. So this is like the plants. Fauna is the animals. All right. So it says here, the tour guide pointed out an American alligator, an example of the incredible flora, right? So an alligator is not flora, right? Flora is like flowers, plants. There are generally three methods by which the fauna or animals arrive in South Florida. Floating seeds is one, right? So no, fauna or animals do not reproduce by seeds. The fauna or animals, they are better able to survive harsh situations such as hurricanes because they are able to flee or migrate, unlike the flora. So that is correct, right? So animals, they can flee or migrate, right? They can leave if they need to, right? Unlike the plants of an area, right? So let's take a look at the next one. So which of the following uses the word maritime correctly, right? So what does maritime mean? It means something to do with oceans, right? So Lewis and Clark made a famous maritime voyage through the Rocky Mountains. No, that's not the ocean, right? The maritime industry is very important, providing fresh ocean-caught fish. Yes, that could be it, right? Because maritime means ocean, so we're doing ocean-caught fish. Windmills, right? Maritime power. No, windmills are not maritime power. These are wind power in the air, right? Not in the ocean. The Apollo 5 crew explored the moon, the maritime environment of the moon. So no, there's not like an ocean on the moon or nothing like that. All right, number 3. Which sentence uses the word conspicuous correctly? So conspicuous means that something that stands out, right? Something that stands out. So the royal palm tree is quite conspicuous, towering over all the other trees in the area. So it's very conspicuous. It stands out. Right? It's towering over all the other trees, so you can see it apart from all the other trees. Right? Nobody could see the Florida panther, one of the most conspicuous creatures of the Everglades. So no, if it's conspicuous and it stands out, then people would be able to see it, right? But if no one can see it, then it's the opposite of conspicuous. Same thing for the groundhog. This is the opposite of conspicuous. All right, next one. Which sentence uses the word terrestrial correctly? Terrestrial means like on the earth, on the land. All right, so this creature which lives in the mountains, an example of the terrestrial life, right? So if it's on land, on the mountains, this is the terrestrial life, not in the oceans. All right, so remember this one, this seed over here, this is from the West Indian mahogany. All right, so these are the winged seeds. You see, this looks like a little wing. So this seed can be carried by the wind somewhere else. All right, the Virginia live oak, we didn't talk about the seeds of these two plants here. But the Virginia live oak, right, has to do with acorns, right? Name this plant. This is the cardinal air plant, right? Remember this one? This one right here is the gumbo limbo tree. So in the flashcards, do you notice this this peeling bark? Do you notice this peeling bark over here, right? So the peeling bark over here, all right, is what the gumbo limbo tree has, right? All right, so this is going to be turtle grass, right? So this is the only one that lives in the ocean, in the marine environment. So this is the only one that's in the ocean. The rest of these, right? Butterfly orchid, cardinal air plant, and brown algae, or it's actually brown algae is also in the ocean, but these two are on land. So brown algae we didn't talk about, but this is something that floats on the water. This is not like an ocean grass. So we talked about turtle grass, manatee grass, and shoalweed, right? So the only one that's on here is the turtle grass, right? Which of the following is true about temperate and tropical climates? So tropical is like down here and south of here, right, near the equator. Temperate is like north of here. So tropical climates are like very hot and humid, and most of the year just very hot. Temperate climates, you have like the specific seasons, right? And so it's not too hot. Right? So in this one, right, I think someone put A temperate climate generally exists between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. So no, so between this area between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn, this is the area near the equator. All right. So if you look this up on the map, this is the area near the equator. So that's not going to be a temperate climate. That's going to be very tropical. Those are the tropics. So tropical plants generally require a climate that is warmer than temperate plants to survive. Yes, so tropical plants, this is the tropics, the warm area. So those plants require warm climates. So temperate plants, they can survive in like cold areas. All right. So why are Virginia live oak trees rarely found on tree islands, right? So tree islands are kind of like, they look like little islands and they're surrounded by water. So why is the oak tree not found on the tree islands? So the seed of the oak tree is the acorn, right? And so they're spread by squirrels. And so, they can't like just swim through the Everglade, marshes and swamps to get to the tree islands, right? So squirrels, they don't really like to swim and all that stuff. They don't usually go into the water, so they're not going to take acorns to these tree islands. So this one is not true. The Virginia live oak cannot survive in the climate of South Florida. So the Virginia live oak does live here, right? Just not on the tree islands in these swampy kind of areas. So it lives mostly in dry areas. All right, so this one over here, so this plant here is a butterfly orchid. So this is an epiphyte, right? This is a small plant that grows on the side of a larger plant, all right? So this small plant is growing. It's not in the ground with its roots sticking into the soil, right? This plant, its roots is sticking into the tree, right? So it gets its nutrients from the tree directly. It doesn't have access to the soil. So this small plant is called an epiphyte, right? An epiphyte is a plant that lives on another plant. And so this one right here is the butterfly orchid. So I think there's a picture of this in the book. All right, so this is the white-crowned pigeon. You see there's like a white crown on this pigeon? That's why it's called a white-crowned pigeon. So this one over here, right, spreads through its droppings many kinds of seeds. It brings over tropical trees and plant seeds from other parts of the Caribbean, the West Indies, or these other islands, and brings them here to South Florida. All right, so which of these shows a fern plant? So this one right here is a fern plant. So you notice all these small dots on the bottom, right? So these small dots, these are, spores. So these are not like regular seeds. These are like tiny spores. So this one over here is the butterfly orchid. This one over here, I don't remember which one this was. This one over here, these are the floating seeds of the mangrove tree right over here. So you see how this is underneath the water. You see this is the top of the water over here, kind of like a reflection kind of thing. And so these seeds are floating right at the top of the water. So these are the seeds of the mangrove trees. All right, so the orchid plant, right? Let's say the seeds from a new type of orchid plant begins to grow in the soil of the Everglades. So some orchid plant came from somewhere and the seeds dropped in the Everglades somewhere and it started to grow. However, very quickly this type of plant just died out, right? It wasn't able to reproduce and produce seeds. So what happened? Well, what happens is that these orchid plants, especially certain kinds of plants like the orchid plant, they require specific kind of pollinators, right? What are pollinators? Like insects and things like that, usually insects. So when they go from flower to flower, okay, drinking the nectar, they take some of the pollen and they transfer the pollen into the center where the pollen needs to go to combine with the egg. Now when that happens, combine with the small ovules, or go down into the ovules. So when that happens, so that requires specific insects. So like the common kind of, so most plants, they don't require like specific insects to come and pollinate them, right? Just any general, butterflies, honeybees, whatever can work for them. But some of these plants, the orchid plants, just your average, insect is not going to go to them. They need like some specific kind of insect. So if these seeds came over here, you know, generally like the insect doesn't also come over as well at the same time. So those specific insects that pollinate this flower may or may not be found over here. All right, so let's suppose the climate changes and a glacial period occurs. So glacial period is what? When like there's a lot of glaciers, when it gets very cold, right? So what would happen? Probably this one right here. South Florida will change from a tropical to a temperate environment, right? So it's no longer going to be so tropical. It's going to become colder and become more temperate, right? So some people put this one here. This will cause ocean levels to rise. So actually the exact opposite will occur, right? Let's suppose a lot of the water, right, turns into ice, right? If the earth gets colder, right, there's going to be a lot more ice all over the place. So a lot of the water is going to turn into ice. So what's going to happen is there going to be more water in the ocean and the ocean is going to start to rise? Or is the water level going to sink? The water level is going to sink because a lot of the water in the ocean has been used up to make glaciers. All right. So let's take a look at this one. So many marsh plants regrow quickly following a drought or a fire or something. So why is that the case? So in marshes, right? Remember, you know, in marshes, most of the year is like filled with water, right? It's not very deep, right? That's why these plants can still grow there. But, you know, there's like at least a couple inches or whatever, sometimes a foot of water that's all over the place. So let's suppose a fire comes through. Well, the fire is going to burn off the top of the plant, right? But the roots, right, and the part that's, you know, below is covered with water. The fire cannot get down there, right? The fire is not going to, you know, burn through the water. So the roots are protected, right? So from those roots, the plant can regrow quickly. In most other places, right, let's suppose a fire goes through. Well, it's not going to just burn the top of the plant. There's no water that's covering the roots. So the fire can burn through and destroy the roots as well. Not necessarily all of the roots, but like enough to where the plant gets damaged and can't regrow from those same roots. It has to start over from a completely different seed. All right, so those are the explanation. If you have any questions, you can send me an email with any question that you don't understand. So because you logged in, you should be able to go back and review these questions again. All right, so any questions, let me know.